Welcome back to EASD TV. Now we've been talking futures. One of those things that's always been on the scene, a bit like spinal regeneration, is the promise of islet transplantation and stem cell therapies for type 1 diabetes. It's always been there, but what will it deliver for the future? Well, with me I have one of the experts in this area, Professor Eelco de Koning, Professor of Diabetology at Leiden University. So, first of all, just lay out the field for us. What has been the state of play over the last decade?
Well, thank you for having me. And the thing is, of course, that people living with type 1 diabetes have no or hardly any insulin-producing cells left, and that's why they need insulin. And of course, it's a logical thought to replace those insulin-producing cells with other cells. And that's what we have been doing over the last couple of decades, either by transplanting an entire pancreas or transplanting isolated islets out of a pancreas. And this has always been a therapy for a very small group of people living with type 1 diabetes.
So these are the people who are refractory to treatment, who have all sorts of problems, and this is kind of their last hope.
Exactly, and also people with specific complications, for example, people who already have kidney failure, so that they are transplanted a kidney and a pancreas. So indeed, a very small group of subjects.
And we've always been kind of really excited about this, but it's never really quite got there.
No, because there are two important hurdles. First, there is a lack of organ donors, so we just simply cannot treat more people. And the second major hurdle is that people need to take immunosuppressive drugs in order to suppress rejection. And these drugs are or have side effects, important side effects, and that's also a reason why we limit the number of people who can get this treatment.
Okay, so now let's go to stem cell therapy.
Yes. So what the exciting developments are over the past couple of years is that we can now, in the laboratories, generate insulin-producing cells from so-called pluripotent stem cells.
So these are the ones that could turn into anything?
Yes, you can compare them to kind of fertilized egg cells. They can turn into every cell of the body. And it has taken, I think, scientists about 25 years in order to figure out how to generate good insulin-producing cells from these pluripotent stem cells. And over the past couple of years, what has been done is that now, from the research laboratories, we are translating these findings into real studies in people living with type 1 diabetes.
So you think finally, 25 years later, it's delivering?
Yes. Since the discovery of the embryonic stem cells 25 years ago, we are now, with regard to people with type 1 diabetes, in a phase where we actually see the potential curative characteristics of these cells.
Okay, so now take me forward to the end of the decade. Where do you think we'll be with stem cell therapies for type 1?
Yes. So what will happen is that when we now transplant these cells, still, immunosuppressive agents are necessary when we do not shield these cells from the immune system. So that means that it's actually the same small group of people with very difficult to treat type 1 diabetes. However, and this is how I see the future, if we can shield those cells from the immune system through different strategies, then suddenly this treatment will potentially be applicable to a much wider range of people with type 1 diabetes, because then you don't have to take these immunosuppressive drugs anymore.
And are we talking about a relatively simple procedure?
It is not a simple procedure. To generate those cells is a very complex endeavor. The whole manufacturing of these cells needs to be according to really specific and stringent rules. The safety must be guaranteed, of course. And all these aspects also make that probably the step towards wide implementation in a very large group of patients will really take a while.
And presumably these patients would have to be very closely monitored.
Yes, and this is what we do in clinical trials. So now the first phase trials are going on at the moment. Once those are successfully completed, then phase 2 and phase 3 trials can be started in larger group of subjects, and we will gain a lot of information on the efficacy of this treatment and on the safety of this treatment over time.
Let me take you now to 2035. Get out your crystal ball, give it a good polish. What are we going to see happen then?
What we will see is a lot of development in the field of how can we shield those cells after they've been implanted from the immune system. Is that by small genetic modifications of these cells so that they are not recognized? Is it by encapsulating those cells in some kind of biomaterial devices that are implanted so that the cells cannot be found by the immune system? I think what we'll see is a lot of developments in this area, and then of course testing these cells, and it will be version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 over time, and I think there will be gradual improvements over the upcoming years up to 2035.
Now, one other aspect of stem cells which has caused a lot of excitement is their potential use for development of drugs. Just tell us briefly about that.
So there are other aspects why stem cells can be very useful, because they can you can build a technology platform. Potentially you can make billions of stem cell islets and you can test a lot of compounds on them. So this is a really important strategy to look at targets and to find novel therapies also that can perhaps, and that is of course what we want, can prevent the onset of type 1 diabetes. We can use these islets, for example, for interaction with immune cells, to study that. Interaction with virus, to study that in the context of type 1 diabetes. And another important option is that we use them for disease modeling. So what happens if you have a specific genetic mistake in your cells so that your beta cells, your islets, do not work anymore? Can we mimic that in a dish? And can we then also find treatments, and can we get insight why this happens?
Absolutely fascinating. So I think there's a bright future for stem cells.
I think it is the future. With regard to cell replacement therapy in type 1 diabetes, this is it.
Well, there you are. Thank you so much. Now, you heard it on EASD TV, Stem Cells of the Future. Come back with us soon. Bye for now.